Imagine the jagged peaks of Afghanistan's rugged mountains, where the sun scorches the earth by day, and the nights plunge into bone-chilling cold wrapping around a forgotten outpost called Fort Vanguard. Dust storms whip through like angry spirits, and the constant drone of unmanned aircraft hums overhead, a reminder that danger never sleeps. This is no glamorous battlefield. It's a grinding machine of isolation, where soldiers push through endless routines far from home, family, and the world that forgets them. And right in the heart of it all walks Sergeant Aisha Williams, a 32-year-old black woman who's mastered the art of blending into the shadows. Aisha's not the type you notice at first glance. She's in logistics, the backbone that keeps the base running, polished boots crunching over gravel as she checks supplies. Her reports crisp and on point, her voice steady but soft. No rifle slung over her shoulder, no scars screaming stories of frontline glory. Just a woman doing her job day in and day out in a place that chews up dreams and spits out doubt. But here's the thing about places like this, they test your soul. The isolation creeps in whispering lies about your worth, especially when you're black in a system built on overlooking folks like you. Think back to those WW2 heroes in segregated units, the Tuskegee Airmen, the 761st Tank Battalion fighting twice as hard against enemies abroad and prejudice at home. Systemic racism didn't just sideline them, it buried their stories, leading to generations of internalized doubt where you question if your contributions will ever matter. The cause: a deep-rooted bias that values flash over substance, and the consequence: a quiet erosion of spirit that turns warriors into ghosts. Aisha knows this all too well. Her role mirrors those essential workers back home, the nurses, the delivery drivers, the cleaners who keep society afloat but get dismissed as background players. We make the mistake of judging by appearances, assuming that if someone's not in the spotlight, they're not shining at all. But oh, how wrong that is. True strength often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And on Aisha's forearm, peeking just above her rolled-up sleeve, is a small, intricate dragonfly tattoo, a delicate symbol that seems out of place amid the armored Humvees and bearded operators. To the casual eye, it's just ink, maybe a whim from her younger days. But lean in closer, because this is where the intrigue builds. What if that dragonfly isn't just art? What if it's a code, a silent badge from a past no one here suspects? The guys in infantry mutter about it in the chow line. Dragonfly on a soldier, what's she gonna do? Buzz the enemy away? Laughter echoes sharp as shrapnel, but Aisha doesn't flinch. She moves like the wind, unseen, unstoppable, carrying the weight of secrets that could shatter assumptions. We've all been there, haven't we? Overlooked, underestimated, carrying scars from battles no one sees. Maybe you've been the one passed over for a promotion, or betrayed by those you trusted, fighting to rise above the hurt. That's the fire in Aisha's story. It's your story too. It reminds us that enduring the grind isn't weakness. It's forging unbreakable armor. And just when you think she's destined to fade into the background forever, a blacked-out convoy rolls in one blistering afternoon, kicking up dust that hides more than it reveals. The lead ranger steps out, eyes scanning the base like a hawk, but it's the older commander trailing behind, gray at the temples, gaze forged in fire, who stops dead in his tracks. He spots that dragonfly and something shifts. No words yet. Just a frozen moment that hangs heavy in the air. What happens next? Well, that's where the real sting begins, the dismissal that cuts deeper than any blade. Stick around, because Aisha's about to teach us all a lesson in resilience that hits right in the gut. As that convoy settles in, kicking up more dust than answers the air at Fort Vanguard, thickens with the kind of tension you can feel in your bones. But before we dive into that frozen stare from the commander, let's pull back and really sink into the sting that Aisha Williams endures every single day, the kind of dismissal that doesn't just brush off, it burrows deep like sand in an open wound. Picture this: the mess hall at dawn, steam rising from trays of eggs and coffee that taste like regret. And there she is, Aisha, sliding through the line with her head high, but her presence. It's like she's invisible. The infantry guys, those rough-and-tumble types with egos bigger than their packs, spot that dragonfly tattoo on her arm and let the jabs fly. Look at that dragonfly in the desert. Bet she thinks it'll scare off the Taliban with its pretty wings. Snickers ripple through the room. Anonymous notes appear on her bunk, labeling her a delicate flower in fatigues, and whispers follow her like shadows. Logistics, that's code for hiding from the real fight. This isn't just petty teasing. It's a battlefield of its own, one that's all too real for black women in the military. Draw from those raw memoirs of the post-Vietnam era, where sisters in uniform faced microaggressions that chipped away at their armor, being called affirmative action hires, or questioned on every decision not because of skill, but because of skin and gender. The cause: a toxic brew of racial and gender biases baked into the system, where folks assume if you're not swinging a rifle or barking orders, you're not pulling weight. The consequence: it erodes morale like rust on steel, leading to isolation that spirals into depression, higher dropout rates, or that quiet rage that simmers until it boils over. Contrast that with the Tuskegee Airmen, those trailblazers who endured slurs and sabotage, yet soared higher. Groupthink and segregated units tried to ground them, but their resilience turned prejudice into fuel. We've all seen similar traps in life. The common mistake of letting biases blind us to talent, like overlooking a colleague's ideas because they don't fit the leader mold, only to watch the team suffer for it. Aisha feels every barb, but she doesn't lash out. No, she channels it, her calm like a coiled spring turning inward battles into invisible strength. You've been there too, right? Betrayed by a friend, dismissed at work, carrying wounds from a world that underestimates you. It's that fire that keeps you going, proving that enduring ridicule doesn't break you. It builds unbreakable resilience, forging you into something sharper, ready for the fight ahead. But just as the mockery hits a fever pitch one evening with a blurry photo of her tattoo pinned up in the barracks, scrawled with fraud in red ink, laughter echoing louder than ever, something unexpected cracks the facade. The door swings open, and in steps that Ranger convoy we mentioned, their boots heavy with purpose. The younger operators glance at Aisha, smirking as they approach her desk for resupply. "You the one with the bug tat? Cute." But then the commander, that grizzled vet with eyes that have seen too much locks onto her arm. Time slows. He doesn't join the chuckles. Instead, his face drains of color, and in that heartbeat the room shifts from ridicule to a silence pregnant with secrets. What flashes through his mind? Hold tight, because this is the first glimmer of truth piercing the shadows, a recognition that flips everything on its head and pulls us deeper into Aisha's hidden world. That silence in the supply room hangs like a storm about to break thick with unspoken questions as the Ranger commander's eyes bore into Aisha's dragonfly tattoo. Time stretches, the younger operators shifting uncomfortably, their smirks fading into confusion. And then, in a move that sucks the air right out of the space, the commander, this battle-hardened vet with scars mapping out decades of shadows, straightens his spine, raises his hand in a crisp, formal salute, and holds it there, eyes locked on Aisha, like she's a ghost risen from the grave. The room goes dead quiet. No one dares breathe. "Ma'am," he whispers, voice low and gravelly, like it's pulled from a memory he'd buried deep. Aisha hesitates for just a beat, then returns the salute, her posture flawless, unflinching. But the real punch. He leans in closer, murmuring words that hit like a grenade. "You were at Shadow Vale." Boom! There it is. The first glimmer cracking through the darkness, a revelation that flips the script and pulls you in deeper. Operation Shadow. Vale. A Black Ops nightmare. 8 years back, off the books, and buried under layers of red tape. 18 operatives vanished in the hostile crags of enemy territory, presumed wiped out in a hail of fire and betrayal. Think of it like the Bin Laden raid, that razor-sharp strike where secrecy wasn't just protocol, it was survival. National security demands the Vale expose the details, and you hand enemies a playbook. but the personal toll. It's a gut-wrenching beast, breeding survivor's guilt that gnaws at you in the quiet hours, turning heroes into haunted shells. Why hide it all? Because the truth could unravel alliances, spark scandals, or worse, put lives at risk long after the dust settles. The effects ripple out families left in limbo, operatives like Aisha, carrying invisible wounds, questioning every dawn if they deserve to make it out alive. Aisha's hidden status echoes those undercover civil rights activists in the 1960s, the Freedom Riders, the sit-in warriors who slipped into danger zones, blending in to fight injustice from within their valor, dismissed because it didn't come with badges or headlines. We make the error of assuming non-combat roles lack grit, like labeling a strategist a desk jockey, while they orchestrate wins from the shadows, common pitfalls that blind us to the full picture, costing teams their edge and individuals their due. But here's the moving truth: symbols, like that dragonfly tattoo, aren't just ink. They carry untold stories of sacrifice, badges etched in skin that scream resilience when words fail. They remind us that your scars, visible or not, are proof of battles won, fueling that inner fire to keep pushing against the odds. The younger Rangers exchange glances, one muttering, "Sir, what the hell?" But the commander doesn't break eye contact with Aisha. "She's not just logistics," he says, voice steady but laced with awe. "She's the reason some of us walked away from that hellhole." And just like that, the twist lands. The mockery that once echoed now twists into uneasy whispers, rippling through the base, curiosity blooming like wildfire in the dry Afghan wind. Eyes that once rolled now narrow in wonder, questions bubbling up. Who is she really? But as those whispers grow, so does the backlash, tensions rising like a gathering storm, ready to unleash confrontations that test every limit. The whispers about Aisha Williams and her dragonfly tattoo spread through Fort Vanguard like a spark in dry brush, but they don't bring awe just yet. Oh no, they ignite a firestorm of doubt and venom. The mess hall, once a place of routine chatter, now hums with a sharper edge. Soldiers lean over their trays, muttering, "Shadow Veil sounds like a ghost story. She's just a clerk with a fancy tattoo." By noon, someone's pinned a blurry snapshot of that dragonfly to the barracks wall, scrawled with "fraud" in bold red marker, the words screaming louder than the laughter that follows. Aisha walks past it, her face a mask of calm, but you can feel the weight she carries, each jab, each sneer piling onto a soul already scarred by battles no one here can imagine. This isn't just petty bullying, it's a gauntlet, a test of spirit that mirrors the struggles of black women in the military, like those Vietnam-era veterans who faced slurs and sabotaged their contributions, buried under a system that refused to see their worth. Dig into those stories and you'll find the root of this cruelty: institutional hierarchies that breed bias where non-combat roles are dismissed as lesser, and black women are doubly scrutinized, forced to prove themselves against a tide of prejudice. The consequence: a fractured unit where trust erodes and morale cracks, leaving soldiers like Aisha isolated, their mental health fraying under the strain. Think of Colin Powell rising through a military that often saw his skin before his skill, or contrast this with the solidarity of the 6888th Postal Battalion black women in WW2 who defied scorn to deliver hope. The common mistake: letting gossip and unchecked egos poison a team, assuming someone's story ends at their job title. But Aisha's silence isn't surrender, it's a weapon honed through years of enduring what others can't. We've all felt that sting, haven't we? Being underestimated, betrayed, or boxed into a role that doesn't fit your fire. The lesson here hits deep: silence in the face of injustice can be your sharpest blade, cutting through chaos with quiet power. But the tension doesn't just simmer. It explodes one evening in the chow line. Captain Morales, a career officer with a chip on his shoulder, spots Aisha and can't resist. He taps the photo on the wall, voice loud enough to turn heads. "This you, Williams? You think some ink makes you a legend? My dog's got better clearance." Laughter erupts, but Major Harlan, standing nearby, takes it further, stepping into her space. "Let me guess, your boyfriend was a ranger, left you his tattoo as a souvenir." The room leans in, waiting for her to crack. Aisha sets her tray down slow and deliberate, her eyes locking onto his, clear as a desert sky. "No, sir," she says, voice steady but sharp enough to cut glass. "But my CO wore it on his chest the day we breached a fortress in Helmand. I was third through the door." The air shifts forks, pausing mid-bite as Harlan's smirk falters. Plot twist. She's not just defending herself, she's planting a seed of truth that shakes the room, hinting at a past so raw it silences the crowd. What did she just unleash? Those words, that fortress, that number third. Through the door hang like a grenade with the pin pulled, setting the base buzzing with questions no one's ready to answer. Hold on tight, because this spark of defiance is about to meet the weight of authority, and the truth is clawing its way out of the shadows. The mess hall at Fort Vanguard is still reeling from Aisha Williams's words, third through the door in a Helmand fortress, a bombshell that left jaws on the floor and egos bruised. Whispers swirl like the dust outside, but they're no longer just mockery. They're laced with doubt, curiosity, and something new, fear of the truth. Aisha doesn't linger to bask in the stunned silence. She picks up her tray, walks out, and heads back to her post, but the weight of those eyes follows her heavy as the Afghan sun. The base is a powder keg now, and it's about to ignite when Colonel Elias Grant, a man with a Silver Ranger tab and a reputation harder than the granite peaks, calls her into his operations office the next morning. She steps in posture perfect, her dragonfly tattoo peeking out as she hands over a folded, weathered document stamped with security seals so classified they'd make a major sweat. Grant unfolds it, his eyes scanning the first line. Operation Shadow Veil redacted. Operative Code Ember 1. Tier 1. Designated Marksman. Attached to SOCOM. Deep Vector. He freezes his coffee mug, forgotten. "This can't be right," he mutters, but Aisha leans in, voice steady. "I was the last one out of Helmand when the fortress fell, sir." The ink. She pulls back her sleeve, revealing the dragonfly encircled by coordinates, a black star at its core. "That's the Ember Code. Only 3 of us had it. The others are buried in Arlington." Flashback to that night 8 years ago. Imagine the chaos, fire licking the sky, screams drowned by gunfire, as Aisha, barely 24, drags 3 wounded comrades through a collapsing compound, bullets snapping past her head. Picture the real-life echo of Lori Piestewa, the Hopi soldier who died in Iraq saving her squad, her sacrifice barely a footnote until years later. Why do heroes like Aisha stay hidden? Bureaucratic red tape buries their files in vaults, prioritizing secrecy over recognition, leaving survivors wrestling with guilt and anonymity. The fallout. Delayed honors breed bitterness, erode trust, and leave wounds that never fully heal. Compare this to Katherine Johnson at NASA, her genius sidelined by race and gender until a spotlight forced the world to see. The mistake we make. Assuming a low rank or quiet role means no impact, when often it's the silent ones steering the ship. The lesson burns bright. True validation comes from within, but when the world finally sees you, it can heal wounds you didn't know were bleeding. Grant stands, walks around his desk, and salutes Aisha, crisp and unwavering. Through the open door, soldiers in the hallway freeze their chatter, dying as they witness a colonel honoring a sergeant. But the twist hits harder when General Harlan, the same officer who mocked her yesterday, bursts in, summoned by the base's buzzing rumors. "She's bluffing," he snaps, but Grant slides the dossier across the desk. "Read it, Major. Her record's locked 6 floors below the Pentagon. You mocked a ghost." Harlan's face pales as he scans the page, and then General Vega arrives in a Blackhawk, his presence like thunder. He doesn't wait for formalities, just holds up a copy of Aisha's Ember clearance. "You saved 3 of my men that night, Williams," he says softly. "Declan Ross signed this himself." Plot twist. The commander who died in Helmand was Vega's mentor, making this personal, a debt unpaid until now. Full access reinstated, Vega declares. No one mocks her again. The base is transformed. But Aisha, she's back at her post, calm as ever, while the dragonfly on her arm becomes a legend, whispered in awe. Yet the ground beneath Fort Vanguard is about to shake, literally, because danger doesn't wait for salutes, And Aisha's next test is coming at dawn, faster and deadlier than anyone expects. The dawn at Fort Vanguard is a traitor cloaked in a deceptive calm that shatters at 0420 hours when a bone-rattling boom splits the silence. A second explosion follows, then a third ripping through the northern perimeter like a predator's claws. The comms crackle to life, frantic voices shouting, "Possible breach, no visual inbound unknowns." Then the blackout hits every light on the eastern grid, snuffs out, cameras go dark, and sensors freeze mid-scan. The base is blind, a sitting duck in the Afghan mountains. But at the southernmost gate, Checkpoint Delta, Aisha Williams stands alone, her M4 rifle steady in her hands, her dragonfly tattoo catching the faint glow of a backup generator. She doesn't flinch, doesn't blink her eyes, scanning the horizon like a hawk. Something moves out there, low, silent, wrong. 7 black-clad figures upped for drama drop from a stealth chopper, moving like shadows with no call signs, no flags, just intent to kill. Aisha flicks off her earpiece, now useless with static, and her breath stays even, her fingers steady. This isn't panic, it's precision, the kind forged in the fires of Operation Shadow Veil. Think of the 2012 Camp Bastion attack, where insurgents slipped through cracks exploiting tech-heavy defenses. Bases like this rely too much on radar and cameras, leaving gaps when power fails. The cause, overconfidence in systems over soldiers. The consequence, vulnerabilities that turn outposts into death traps, risking mass casualties if no one steps up. Aisha's no stranger to this. Her movements are surgical, not standard infantry, echoing the elite training of Delta operators or Navy SEALs. Compare her to the lone defenders in history like Desmond Doss at Hacksaw Ridge, who stood firm when all seemed lost. The mistake we make underestimating support roles, assuming a logistics sergeant can't outfight a strike team. But Aisha's about to rewrite that story. The first intruder slices through the outer fence like it's paper. Aisha fires once, clean center mass. He drops. The others hesitate just a heartbeat, and she's already behind a concrete barricade. A flashbang arcs through the air. She shuts her eyes, counts 3, then pops up 2 shots, 2 more down, 1 crawling, clutching a leg. The remaining 4 scatter, but Aisha moves like a ghost, low and fluid, her training kicking in like muscle memory. By the time the last man reaches the second checkpoint tower, she's behind him, voice cold as steel. "On your knees." He spins weapon, rising too late. Her shot is muffled, precise. He collapses. 7 bodies, 7 threats neutralized, all before the base can even mobilize. APCs roar in minutes later, soldiers spilling out, shouting, disoriented. Colonel Grant is first on foot, sidearm drawn, his face paling as he takes in the scene, blood on the sand. Aisha standing tall, her sleeve stained but not with her blood. "Report," he barks. "EMP drone took out the north sector," she says, calm as ever. "They bypassed radar, landed here. All neutralized." Grant stares. "Alone." She nods. No time to wait. General Vega, stepping forward, mutters, "That dragonfly." It wasn't a warning. It was a seal. Plot twist, intel later reveals these weren't random insurgents, but a rogue paramilitary team targeting her, hunting the last Ember operative to silence Shadow Veil's secrets forever. The base didn't expect resistance, especially not from a logistics sergeant at a forgotten gate. This is the lesson that burns in chaos. The overlooked become legends, turning the tables when the world bets against them. You've felt that too, right? Rising up when no one expects it, proving your worth in the clutch. Aisha's stand is a beacon for anyone counted out, showing that your moment comes when you refuse to break. But the dust hasn't settled yet. Her actions ripple outward, rewriting her legacy and shaking Fort Vanguard to its core. What happens when a ghost becomes a hero? Stay with me, because the final chapter is where the salutes begin and the truth hits home. The sun rises over Fort Vanguard like a reluctant witness, casting long shadows across the blood-stained sand of Checkpoint Delta, where the echoes of gunfire still linger in the air. Aisha Williams stands there amid the wreckage. 7 intruders down the base saved her dragonfly tattoo. Now a stark silhouette against the dawn, no longer a punchline, but a talisman of the impossible. Word spreads like a shockwave, a logistics sergeant alone against a rogue strike team. Medals pour in, Silver Star promotion to staff sergeant, full reactivation of her Ember clearance with honors that could launch her to command desks back stateside. But Aisha. She looks General Vega in the eye, her voice quiet but unyielding. With respect, sir, I'll stay right here. The edge of the line is where I belong. No fanfare, no spotlight, just a nod, and she's back at her post rifle slung low, eyes on the horizon guarding the forgotten gate like it's the only place that matters. In the days that follow, the transformation ripples through the base like a quiet revolution. Captain Morales and Major Harlan, once the loudest mockers, now snap to attention when she passes, their apologies mumbled but sincere, eyes downcast like kids owning up to a broken window. The photo of her tattoo. It's gone, replaced by a hand-drawn sketch in the mess hall captioned, "Ember's Wing," a symbol of what happens when you underestimate the storm. Recruits who once snickered now salute first, their whispers shifting from fraud to legend. And the long-term effects, they heal deep wounds. Unit morale skyrockets with soldiers sharing stories of their own hidden battles, fostering a brotherhood that cuts through ranks and biases. Policy whispers even trickle down new briefings on recognizing unsung roles, a nod to how dismissing talent nearly cost them everything. It's like the civil rights marches of the 60s, where one stand against injustice sparked waves of change, proving that individual fire can ignite a movement. Aisha's legacy isn't just ink on skin, it's a mirror for every black trailblazer who's risen from the ashes. Think of Bessie Coleman, the first black American aviator in the 1920s, who faced racism so thick she had to cross oceans to learn to fly, only to barnstorm back home and defy the skies that tried to ground her. Or Oprah Winfrey, clawing out of poverty and abuse in rural Mississippi, turning scars into a media empire that lifts millions, showing that your broken places are where the light gets in. These women, like Aisha, didn't just survive, they redefined victory, analyzing the chains of adversity, poverty, bias, isolation, and their fallout, doubt, division, then contrasting it with triumphs that built empires of empathy. The common error. Repeating the cycle of dismissal, assuming someone's past predicts their future, when really it forges their unbreakable now. But the lessons, they cut straight to the soul. Embrace your scars as badges of honor. They're the map to your power. Fight invisibility not with noise but with quiet, relentless action that speaks louder than any shout. And redemption. It always follows perseverance, turning ghosts into guardians who watch over the rest of us. Yet even in this hard-won peace, Aisha carries the weight of what was lost. Late one evening, as the base quiets under a star-pricked sky, Colonel Grant finds her at the perimeter, staring into the dark. He approaches slow, like he's handling live ordnance. "You know Williams," he says, voice rough with unshed emotion. "That night in Helmand, Declan Ross didn't just sign your clearance. He told me right before the end that you'd be the one to drag us out. You saved my life." Plot twist, the grizzled commander who first saluted her. He was one of the three she pulled from the fire, a debt buried under 8 years of silence, now surfacing like a lifeline thrown back. Aisha nods, a ghost of a smile breaking through. "Just doing my job, sir." But in that moment, the circle closes, not with glory, but with gratitude, a reminder that our fights echo forward, saving souls we may never know we've touched. And you, listening in the quiet of your car on a long drive or winding down after a day that tested your edges, what's your dragonfly? That hidden strength, that scar from betrayal or setback waiting for its dawn. Aisha's story isn't just hers, it's a spark for anyone who's been overlooked, hurt, or hungry for the fight. You've got that fire too. Use it. Now, if this tale of quiet thunder moved, you hit that like button to keep these legends alive. Subscribe to The Black Tale for more raw, real tales of resilience that hit different, especially for us fighting from the margins. Drop a comment below. What's your ember moment? The time you rose when they bet against you? Or where are you tuning in from tonight? Share it, because your story, It might just be the salute someone else needs. Until next time, keep watching the horizon. Your breakthrough's closer than you think.